Hi, good morning. Today we're going to be going over resume development, key elements of a resume. I'm Yesenia, the employment coordinator for Cold Springs and Big Sandy sites. And let's get started. Okay. First slide is going to talk about resume categories. To build a resume, you need to gather information to include under the following categories, making sure to use the proper layout. So basically, the majority of the resume is collecting that information, writing it down. So let's go over some of the headings that we're going to be needing to gather information on to put on a resume. So the first one will be, of course, the heading. And in the heading of your resume, you're going to be wanting to put your name, your address, phone number, a professional email address. And if you have any professional titles, if you're a chef, if you've been in a certain industry for a while and you've mastered certain skills, then we can highlight those titles. That way, as soon as an employer looks at your resume, the first thing they're seeing is your name and some of your key skills or your titles that kind of sum up who you are, what you do. The next category would be summary of qualifications. So that would be in bold. That'd be the next category, and the information that we're going to put under there. We have to brainstorm. We have to create a list of key relevant skills that relate to the job opening. So we're going to look at our job opening, and in our job opening, they're going to say you need customer service skills. You need organizational skills, communication skills. So we're going to be looking for words like that. We're going to highlight them. And then we're going to see which of those skills do you possess, and try to link what job that you've done in the past that you've used those skills. So we want to make sure we're not just grabbing the skills and putting them on there, especially if they're not relevant to you. We want to make sure they're relevant to you. So highlight the skills on the job opening. Think about, how did I complete this skill? How have I performed this task or this skill? And then write that down on a piece of paper, key skills. And then start writing down those skills. And once you have about 5 or 6, then you should be good. Because we probably want to highlight no more than that at the top, depending on how much information is on your resume. But if you can really come up with 6 key skills, then you should be in good shape. You should have good information. Okay, next category is work experience. We want to list under this category employer, dates of employment, job title, and responsibilities and accomplishments. And all of this that I'm going over later on in the presentation, I have kind of like an example of the layout, and I wrote some information in there and how it would look. So under work experience, we'll be listing employer, dates of employment. Now, dates of employment, you can list, some people just put the year from 2009 to 2011. Some employers might look down on that, especially if you have big gaps in your work experience. They might assume that's why you did the dates that way, but it is acceptable to do that. So if you did have a lot of gaps in your work employment, I would probably use that method on your resume. Just the years from this year to that year, not really highlighting the months that might kind of point out those big gaps in employment. Okay, next category is, one more thing under the experience. It says list responsibilities and accomplishments. So responsibilities have to be like the duties that you did on your job every day, or the accomplishments you've achieved at that job. Okay, and we'll go over that more of what that would sound like later on. Next category, education. We're going to list schools, dates, degrees. We could list other information in subcategories like GPA, certificates, credentials, licenses, and if you have any military experience. This also, you can create a subcategory under education if it's applicable to you. If you have any honors or awards that we want to list under those education. And if you do not have any of the degrees or licenses, then of course we're going to highlight for you any community involvement or any volunteer experience you've done in this area instead of all that other stuff. So there's still a lot of room to highlight your skills and what you've done, even if you don't have a lot of degrees or certificates. So don't be intimidated by that. Okay, so the next category is community involvement, and it says we'll list volunteer work, community service projects, and make sure to include any leadership roles that you took in these activities. So if you organized a food drive or a coat drive, or you led a fundraising event, and we're going to highlight that there. And the last category is references. You're going to want to list at least 3 professional references. Include their name, their title, and their best contact number. If you have emails for all 3 references, include them on this area. And always confirm that information and that contact number is up to date, and that let them know, hey, is it okay if I put you as a reference on my resume? Just in case they get that call, they're not caught off guard and they can kind of prepare what they're going to say to that employer about you. All right. Next slide. The heading on a resume. Headings should include, this is the top part, so this was the first category I went over on the last slide, should include your information, which is your name, your address, your email address, and your telephone number with area code. Sometimes when we submit applications, the office that we submit it to might be in a different city, might be in a different state, and they might be handling the hiring process for the jobs in our city. So always make sure to include your area code. And again, make sure your email address is professional. We don't want any character names or any inappropriate suggestions, just something that is your name or your initials, your first name, last name, first name, initial, your first initial, last name. There's a lot of ways you can play around with that. And then, of course, at whatever email you use. So an example of this would be here. This person, their name is Ann Green. I have underneath that an address, 1234 Toll Avenue, Fresno, California, 93164. A phone number with area code, and their professional email address. And that would be the top of your resume, the first thing they see, a heading. Next section, skills section. The skills category, these categories relate to the position or purpose of the resume. So action verb sentences can come from paid and non-paid experiences such as school and life experience. Skills section can be titled different things. You could title this section in this category, Summary of Qualifications, Professional Skills, or Highlight Qualifications. I like to use Highlight Qualifications because this is where we're going to put those, remember that list I told you to make of the skills on that job description that were relevant to you? Those 6 skills, those 6 highlight skills, you want to list them here. And we pulled them from that job description because those skills are what the employer is looking for. They don't really want, they're going to come across resumes that show generic skills or overused skills like people friendly, I'm hardworking, I'm like those types of skills are not specific to the job that they need to fill. So if they come across a resume with 6 highlight skills that are directly from that job description, they're going to be interested in continuing reading your resume. Okay, so that is an important piece of developing this resume. And each resume is going to be the same process. So the bottom will stay the same, like the experience, but the duties and skills that we list, you'll go in and update those for each job that you apply to, because each job's qualifications and what they're looking for might be a little different. So we want to make sure we're using their keywords, and do not use the same resume for each job, because it's just going to get pushed aside if it's not relevant to that employer. For example, let's go over what a summary of qualifications section would look like. So here I have summary of qualifications, bold, larger font, a little larger font, and underlined. And underneath that, I put 4 bullet points. First one, accurate typing skills at 45 words per minute. Second one, excellent attendance and punctuality. Third, positive attitude, motivated and organized. And fourth, proficient with Microsoft Office, Excel, Access, PowerPoint, and Outlook. So you can assume that all of these things I've somehow taken from the job description and made them relevant to myself, and put them here right away for the employer to see. This one goes right underneath the heading. So right underneath your name, this would be the next section. Okay. Sometimes what people have done is, well, what we used to do is put the objective right underneath our names. But now, more recently, we've gone into a trend where we're highlighting qualifications, or we're writing a short 4-sentence paragraph called a summary of qualifications, where basically you're going to say these same things that I bullet pointed, but in a sentence format. So you can do it this way, bullet point, or you can write a short 4-sentence paragraph that highlights it. So it's really up to you format-wise, and then your choice to make. So here underneath this, I wrote the next section, which would be work experience. Again, bold and underline. And the example here that I put, the job title was administrative assistant. I made that in bold too, but that's completely up to you as well. Whatever you do, just make sure you keep the same format for each job experience. So if you are making the job title bold in the next job experience, make sure to keep that same format and use bold for the job title. And then the place of employment is right after that. It's SNL Accounting, Fresno, California, and the dates that I worked there. So I put January 2010 to present. I am still, or you could put current. That's telling them you're still employed there. And we're always going to list our work experience from, we're going to work most recently, what jobs you've had most recently, and then work backwards. I would say probably go back about 10 years, depending on the jobs experience. Sometimes when we have a lot of jobs, the farther back they get, or like if you didn't really hold those jobs for too long, I might omit them. And even if you've had skills that you've learned in those jobs, we can plug those skills into other jobs that we're listing in the resume that are more recent and relevant. Okay, next slide. Example of skills section. So there's two. You can create a section before the work history that is going to organize and categorize like all of your skills. So here, this is optional. I don't have this on my resume, but it is an option. So I listed my highlight skills at the top, and then I went right into my work experience where under each job I put those skills and the duties that I've done and accomplishments that I've made under each job. Here, they've chosen to categorize their skills into 3 that they wanted to highlight. And this might be because on the job opening, there were these skills that were in the job qualifications. So they're looking for program development, management, supervision, and project management. So if I have those skills, then I probably should make a section that highlights everything I've done that falls under these categories. And so it's just a matter of strategy and personal preference of what you want to do. Make it easy for the employer to see that you are the right fit and you have those skills that they need. So here, let's just see what we wrote. Program development. Taught health education programs in stress management and healthy habits. Implemented a smoking education program for freshmen and sophomore students. 85% of students attended. So here's a good example of including an accomplishment under our duties. So we're not just wanting to list duties without any context. We're trying to tell them exactly what we did in a really good detail, and if we can include an accomplishment in some type of data, do that. Next one, management and supervision. Supervised a staff of up to 15 personal trainers in a center that specialized in professional and college athletes. So another example of being very detailed, we didn't just write managed staff, we specified how many people we were supervising and at what type of facility. Next one, project management. Directed a 15-person team that conducted a nutrition health survey of 1,000 school-age children, ages 9 through 17. Again, detailed. So it didn't say, oh, I directed a nutritional program and that's it. We were very specific. 15-person team surveyed this many people or this many children and their age range. Okay, and then underneath this skills section, if you choose to go this route, then you would start in on your work history or work experience, however you want to categorize it. And here is an example. So if you're going to write all your skills up here, like in this slide, then when you list your work experience, you really shouldn't have skills and duty underneath each job because they're going to fill up this top section. So you're basically taking all those duties and skills that you have, we're going to list under each job, and you're categorizing them, and then you're listing them above. And then, so when you get to your work history, all you'll list will be the job title, fitness counselor, the place you worked, the personal fitness center, Carmichael, California, and the dates. Then underneath that, you'll go right into the next place, health educator, Davis Community Health, Davis, California, and then the dates that you worked in that place. So this is a different way to go. It might work for some people and others it might not, but if it works for you, try it out. Next slide, work experience section. In a combination resume, one always includes a work experience section after the skills and knowledge section. So the work experience section only includes the job title, company or organization, city, state, and date range. The date range can be expressed by year only or the month and the year. So that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. We could just write 2003 to 2009, or we could specify the months. And that's going to be dependent on, your work history and the gaps and what you think would look best. If there's a lot of gaps on there, maybe just include the years. And on the job responsibilities or duties. Okay, so if we're going to go with this format, we're going to put all the duties and accomplishments for each job under the job title and not create that list above like that, like we had in the last slide. And this is probably the format that I use most when I make resumes. It's just a little easier. And maybe when you start and you make a resume, you make it this format. But later down the road, when it's all organized and you have all your information in there, you can create another resume in another format, because you're just going to be moving your information around instead of starting from scratch. All right, so in this example, the work experience, that's the category title that's in this example, and the job was cashier at the place, Mom's Burger Palace in Fresno, California, and the dates, February 2003 to May 2009. Responsibilities include assisted guests with their orders, ensured a safe and clean work environment, and assisted other team members as needed. All right, next slide. Education section. So we're coming towards the bottom of our resume already. So after our work experience, then we're going to list our education. And if we have a lot of stuff in this area, we could create subsections or subcategories. So in this example, we have a Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration and Entrepreneurship, the date that you accomplished that degree. They're listing their minor, Computer Science, California State, they minor in Computer Science at California State University, Sacramento. Underneath that, they've achieved other things. So they created subcategories that are kind of tabbed over a bit. And they've listed their honors, certifications, and language skills and computer skills. Okay, next slide. References. References are listed on a separate page with the same heading as your resume. So the heading at the beginning that we created with your name, your address, phone number, email address, and title, you're going to use that same heading on that next page. And then underneath that, we'll create the category references. And the reason for that is if we're submitting a 2-page resume, if one page kind of gets lost or pulled away from the top page, and then I was really interested in that candidate, where's I had the second reference sheet and I lost it, and I found this one, but there's no name on it. So we always want to make sure that our heading is on our reference page as well. Especially if it's 2 or more pages, make sure that heading is on each page. References, okay, I read that already. As your heading include my title, you can also include a business address. Okay. Next one down, same heading as your resume with the title, for example, references or professional references. So again, personal preference, how you want to title this section. You don't want to ever include, I just want to note that before I go on, any personal references. You want to make sure we are including professional references, people we've worked with or worked for. Next one, in order of importance, you're going to list the references. So the same way we listed our job experience, our work experience, most current, and we worked backwards, we're going to list the references that way. So the first reference is going to be in connection to that first job you listed, so that it keeps it organized in that way. And they know that, okay, I'm going to call this first one, it should be most important, it should be most relevant to their work experience. And let's see, it should also be, I guess, in an order. It's in an order where their titles are of most important. So, for example, presidents, CEOs, division managers, put them first. If all of your references are at the same place, this is implying we don't want to put a supervisor first before we put the manager. So we'll list them in order of their importance based on their title and their job duties. So of course, we're going to want to list any presidents, CEOs, or managers of the place where you're working. Then underneath that would be supervisors, department managers, colleagues underneath that, coworkers underneath that, and faculty underneath that. Personal references are not acceptable. Again, just make sure. And if you've done house cleaning for family and friends, babysitting for family and friends, those people then become your professional references. So then in that instance, it's okay. All right, in an example here, they've listed the names of the references, their titles, their phone numbers, and their email addresses. If you notice on here, on this example, the first one is an accounting instructor. The second reference is a restaurant owner. And the third is a marketing manager. So they may be in order of where you've worked most recently to where you worked in the past, but because they're not at the same organization, they're not listed in order of importance by their title. Hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, write your question down, and then at the end we'll talk about that more. I can show you an example. All right, next slide. Tips for ex-offenders. If you have served time in prison and are now attempting to re-enter the workforce, be honest with the potential employer. Include all jobs you have held and any skills you've learned while incarcerated. List the correctional facility in place of the employer for those jobs held while incarcerated. Include any educational institution that provided training. Do not lie on your application. If your employer finds out you lied after you have been hired, you may be terminated immediately. Remember, arrests are not convictions. If you have been convicted of a felony, mark yes on the application. Okay. If there is a space to write an explanation of your conviction, you can choose to write, "We'll explain in detail during the interview." So what we're hoping for here with this strategy is that your skills and your experience make the employer want to interview you to find out more about this. Okay? We want them to consider those things before they consider this and your explanation of what happened. All right, next slide. Portfolios and folders. Use professional leather or vinyl or burgundy portfolios. So dark colors always look a little bit more professional. Basically, just want to stay away from anything too bright, neons, that kind of thing, or lots of busy designs. Inside of the portfolio, suggest using non-glare pages. So if you are showing off a certificate, they can see it without it glaring back at them. Use the portfolio to supplement your answers, and do not speak, not to read from it like a script. So if you're going to be holding that in your hand and flipping through it to show them things, we want to make sure when we're speaking to them, we're not looking down at our portfolio, we're looking them in the eyes and we're talking to them, and we're not reading off of our resume or anything in our portfolio. We want to organize the portfolio for easy access and quick reference. So make sure you know where all of your information is. You probably first start with a copy of the job description and the job opening. Your resume would follow, your references, your any letters of recommendations. You want to put a section for your GEDs or diploma, any certifications you may have received. So you're going to make a section for each of them and make sure it's organized in a way that makes sense to you and that will flow in the interview. Portfolios work best to visually show technical information, projects, photographs, bulletin boards, writing samples, research papers, resumes, sample student work, certificates, conference programs, professional development, and so forth. Remember to organize a portfolio according to the position for which you are interviewing. So you may have all of these great certificates and letters of recommendation and proof to show that you're qualified, but for each job that might be in a different order of importance. So if you're going into an interview, make sure that you organize it in a way that's important for that job interview. So it's easy for you to get to it quickly. Remember to organize the portfolio according to the position for which you are interviewing. Okay, and then next one. Folders may include, sorry, I have to clear my throat. Folders may include extra copies of your resume and application materials. And the last bullet, remember not to fidget with your portfolio if you are nervous. So that's something we might do and not even be aware that we're doing it. Same thing with chairs. If we're in a swivel chair, if we're nervous, we may not realize that we're kind of like swaying back and forth or messing with the wheels or tapping our finger on the chair, something like that. So always be aware, what are your hands doing? What are your feet doing? Where are you looking? You may be nervous. We all feel those feelings, but we have to remember, what am I doing right now? And check those boxes, okay? Watch your hands, watch your feet. Because then you won't realize you were doing those things until you leave the interview and you're, oh my gosh, I just realized like I was doing that the entire time. And it may not be noticeable to you, but the interviewer or the panel, it's going to be very distracting for them. They're going to focus on that instead of those great skills and experiences that you're there to tell them about. Okay. That is the end of the key elements to resume workshop. I have here 4 review questions. I'm going to go over them here, but I'm going to email the link for you to complete the review questions. You can do it on your phone or computer. Just open your email, hit the link. It's to JotForm, and then it'll send me your review questions, and that will be used to confirm your attendance to the workshop. So the first question that is, the heading section on a resume should include your name, address, email, and telephone number. True or false? 2, personal references are acceptable on a resume. True or false? 3, if you have been convicted of a felony, it is okay to mark no for this question on the application. True or false? Number 4, an arrest is not a felony. True or false? All right, is there any questions? That was kind of like a lot of information all at once. If you have any questions, you can tell me now. All right, no questions. In that case, I'm going to be emailing you guys the link to the review questions. And thanks for attending. Have a good day.